morning, Laguna Woods. Thank you for tuning back in because I really wanted you to see the end of this story. This is a testimony of a friend of mine whose name is Greg Outlaw. Uh, God has used him in a mighty way, and I'm going to let you know more about that on tomorrow's show. But we're going to finish his testimony today. This is a story of a changed life, almost like no other one that I have had the personal privilege of knowing. From completely addicted to heroin and dying and on hospice for pancreatitis with no hope whatsoever of being cured. He was just living out his days waiting to die. And you're going to hear right now what happened to him. It is a true miracle of God, along with just his whole changed life. So sit back and be inspired this morning by the story of Greg Outlaw.
And I went home and I flushed every single drug I had down the commode. I think I stuffed it up twice. There was a lot of drugs to flush. I read the Bible 3 times straight through from cover to cover during this 1.5 year period. And at this time, I'm in such incredible pain from the chronic pancreatitis as it escalates and got worse and worse. After a while, I was forced to quit eating. I was being fed intravenously every night as I slept. I was on 300 milligrams of morphine. And through that period of time, God started cleaning up my life. I mean, even though I had quit drinking, I still wanted alcohol. But God took it away. I can't explain it, but all of a sudden, I couldn't even stand to see it or be around it. And then, this laptop, I got this laptop. Back in 1999, this was a $10,000 laptop. I had 1 gigabyte of pornography on this laptop. And I can't explain that either, but all of a sudden I just felt like I got to delete all of this stuff. And I did. I sat there and I deleted every single image on it. This was my portal to rebellion. It was my secret life that only I knew about. It was also the way I made my drug deals and my drug connections. I'd send out emails in code and the other guy would get it and they would unencrypt it. I think it was my mechanism for escape. Because I could open that up, jump in that world, and in that world, I was completely in control of everything. It all bowed down to me. I could make what I wanted when I wanted. I could score what I wanted when I wanted to score it. And now it's used for God. It's now not all about me. Now it's all about God in the laptop. So as I go through this 1.5 year period, and I'm seeking God, and I'm praying, and I'm reading the Bible, I'm a dead man. I'm praying this whole prayer because I absolutely, without a doubt, I know I'm dying. And I left that company, and I felt like I couldn't take any money from it. 6 years worth of work in that company. I didn't take a cent. But I knew I had to make that decision that day. And then I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning, and I didn't have any pain. And to put that in its proper perspective, this was my life for 1.5 years. I would wake up from a drug-induced sleep. I would reach on my nightstand and I'd grab a tablet of morphine and I would take that. I also had liquid morphine that I would take, fill up the dropper and drop it on my tongue to break through so that the other pill just could work. And I would wait for the pain to subside enough that I could actually physically get out of bed. This morning it was different. I didn't have any pain. I still took all of the medication and did my routine. And that day passed, and another day I woke up. The next day, no pain. The next day, no pain. The next day, no pain. And then I'm starting believing. I'm like, Jesus Christ did something to me. What is going on? This is so weird. I don't have any pain. And I start believing, and I'm like going, I don't even need this medication anymore. And so I get off the morphine. I got off 300 milligrams of morphine in 2.5 weeks. I mean, the pain management physician, I had a pain management physician, and all he did was prescribe terminally ill patients medication to get them through until they were dead. And so I drove up to Fountain Valley to see him, and I waited in the waiting room, and he came in the door finally, and he looks at me and he goes, "You really look good, Greg. I thought that you would just like be sweating like crazy and shaking, typical withdrawal symptoms." And I said, "Well, I feel great, Doc." He goes, "Well, tell me what's going on with you." And I said, "Well, Doc, this is going to kind of sound kind of weird." And he looks at me like, "Okay, now you've really gone off the deep end." He's like, started backing away. It's like, "Dude, this might be contagious. I need to get back." He goes, "Well, it's not that, Greg. It's not a miracle. It's some kind of anomaly, some kind of mind over matter game that you're playing." And I just looked at him and I said, "Look, Doc, you know me. You've been treating me a year and a half. You got 2 file drawers on my condition. You know that chronic pancreatitis at my stage, when it's pronounced terminal, is irreversible, that it's not transplantable, that after a while you can't eat any longer, and that it requires massive doses of pain medication just to get by each day. So how do you explain that I don't have any pain anymore, that I quit taking your medication, and that I'm eating again? How do you explain that, Doc?" And he just looks at me kind of like a deer in the headlights. And he goes, "I guess you're right. It must be a miracle." The process to forgive myself was really difficult, because it's one thing to ask for forgiveness from God and from others, and that's hard. But to forgive myself, it's constantly reading the Bible, where it says, "My sins are as far as the east to the west," and that my sins are cast into the bottom of the sea, that they are forgotten by God. And I can't beat myself up on it, because if I'm constantly beating myself up on it, that's like nailing Jesus back to the cross. I don't run my life out of guilt. I do it totally out of love, out of gratefulness and thankfulness that I have been forgiven. Reconciliation is a tough road to hoe when you've gone through so much wreckage of the past. But all things are possible with God.
Well, I was just thinking as I was watching that I forgot to warn you to get some Kleenex prior to watching these videos. I think you probably did it just naturally, because doesn't it just bring tears to your eyes to see how God can touch a life and change a life? I know it does for me. And this story of God touching his body, he was he literally was waiting to die. And one night, and I'm going to tell a little bit more about this story in tomorrow's show. We're going to have a recap show tomorrow. So I hope you'll tune back in. Pastor Jeff is going to join me again, and we're going to just talk about how this life has affected not only us, but literally millions of people around the world. Because the video is wonderful, but it doesn't tell the whole story. We're going to finish the story tomorrow. So Friday, tune back in. In the meantime, let's just praise God. Can God heal people? Absolutely yes. And Greg is, because he woke up one day overnight, no pain, and his pancreatitis miraculously healed. God doesn't always choose to do that, but he can. Well, tune back in tomorrow. We'll finish the story, but I hope you've been inspired this week by Greg's story. I know you have.